Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So, in this video, I just want to take you back a year to this time last year, Christmas coming up, and the family of this man, the George family, John George's family. They didn't spend their Christmas in the conventional way. They won't be spending it in the conventional way this year either. But they spent Christmas in a foreign country. They're from Northern Ireland. They spent their Christmas in a foreign country in Spain looking for their loved one's body. So they'd been told that John George had been murdered here in Spain in the Alicante area. And they were sent on a bit of a wild goose chase, given different areas where he might be. They got a search team in from Northern Ireland. The police looked for him. There was the family and friends and any volunteers were all out searching for John George all over the Christmas and New Year period. And finally, his body was found in a lemon grove, miles away from anywhere that they'd been told that he might possibly be. They'd been looking in the wrong place all the time. That was another, it's bad enough when your family member's murdered and you're looking for their body, isn't it? And it's Christmas time, New Year. John George, father of two young boys, a brother, a son, a cousin. He was... John George had a checkered history. He'd got involved in bad things, I suppose you would say, drugs related. But you know what? The way I look at it with John George is he was so loved by his family and friends. He can't have been that bad. I don't know. It just seemed like everybody loved him so much, but he just seemed to go off on this trajectory, which unfortunately ended in tragedy and violence. So John was killed quite brutally. He was stabbed, he was stripped, he was shot. This is when John's body was finally found, which at least his body was found and his family could take him home and bury him, take him back to Northern Ireland and have a funeral, respectable funeral for him. Still, and even though they knew all that time that they were looking that he was probably deceased, 99% chance that he was deceased because of what they'd been told, must have still been a terrible shock. But anyway, at least they got him back. They didn't have to worry if he was lying out somewhere, what was happening to him. They got him home, they took him home and buried him. So this was all happening last year. The searches were happening. He was found in the new year. The police finally phoned the family and said that they had located John George. So, of course, since then, it sort of got almost more complicated, really, because there are two suspects in this killing, really. You have Michael Malley, who's there on the left, and Johnny Smith, who's there on the right with John George. They are the suspects. Michael Malley turned himself in. That's him going into the Torrevieja courts in Alicante. Whereas Johnny went on the run, married his very young girlfriend, Madeline, and then went off to Portugal. Oh, God knows where he went then. There were all sorts of rumours that he'd gone here, he'd gone there. Anyway, he was found in Portugal and he was extradited to Spain, brought to Alicante, and he was refused bail, whereas Michael Malley was instantly given bail, under certain conditions. I mean, unfortunately, justice in Spain works so slowly. Even more, if you think it's bad in the UK or wherever you are, it's nothing like Spain. So gosh knows when this trial will actually finally be. It'd probably be late next year. So Michael Malley was put on bail under strict conditions, took his passport off him. He has to report I believe, I don't know the exact details, but anyway, he's on bail and he's got his conditions. Now, Johnny was refused bail because he was considered, obviously, a flight risk or whatever, because he'd already, this is John, by the way, let's have a look at his smiling face. He'd already been refused bail because he'd already run away once. So, that went against him, obviously, when it came to sort of handing out bail. Now it turns out and the reason that I'm doing this video, and I really feel for the George family. I mean, I don't know who killed John George, whether it was Michael, whether it was Johnny, whether it was both of them together. I don't know. But the thing is, all I know is for the George family, they're facing this Christmas. It'll all be about memories of last Christmas, as well, and how they passed last Christmas and New Year. And this year, they're not doing that. They're not, searching around a foreign country with the language barrier, etc., for their loved one. But that, although they spent last Christmas without George, it'll feel like this Christmas is the first Christmas without John. It'll be like this Christmas is the first Christmas, won't it? Because last year they were so, it was all about finding him. And I think, we remember John's dad, Billy, we were all touched by the emotional videos he put out begging for his son's body, for the people to tell him where his son's body was. And, those sort of pleas and when unanswered, that's not nice. I mean, to me, I don't know what happened. As I said, I don't know who killed him. But you know what? There's no sort of screwing the knife in even further, if you like, by making, torturing a father about his son, where his son's body is. That's almost as bad, if not worse, than when they actually killed him. You have to presume, you'd hope that it wasn't, a cold-blooded murder. I mean, what was it? An argument, a heat of passion? I don't know. Could even have been self-defense for all I know. I just have no idea because I wasn't there at the time. But, what they did afterwards by not just saying where he was as well, and leaving that family to suffer and searching, a fruitless search. But anyway, so this year it feels like it will be more the first Christmas like of every, and now it turns out that it looks like Johnny Smythe will be getting bail after all. So that's what I'm here to tell you about. It's an article in the Belfast Belfast newspaper. Let's have a look. Belfast Live. So, John George pictured with 26-year-old Johnny Smith, who was arrested in connection to the murder investigation. So all this time, Johnny's been in prison since he was extradited from Portugal. And of course, his girlfriend, or what was his girlfriend, now his wife, they do get conjugal visits. That's how it is in Spain. So a man accused of killing Belfast father of two, John George, has been told. Now, this is it may not be true. I don't know. I think it probably is true. I don't think the paper would be saying it unless it was. So he's been told he can leave prison on payment of €100,000 bail. Now, I mean, it's a lot of money. I don't know if they can lay their hands on that money, but I don't know if you have to. Do you have to actually put the money up front? I don't really know how bail works. Do you have to actually put the money down and then you get it back later, when the person doesn't sort of, or is it just something that you have to say that you're going to pay if anything happens? And then, I don't know really how it works. So, yeah, and this is a surprise decision. Now, there's a lot of talk about some blood evidence and things. We don't know all the evidence because, we haven't had the court case yet. So we won't get to know what evidence against who the police have, and it may be because it's not clear that Johnny was the killer that he's been released, and Michael's been released. But with Johnny's history of running away, It's a surprise. But anyway, this is what I've said all along with Spanish. Like everything in Spain, everything's arbitrary. What can be true one day, it's not true the next. Or, the judges have absolute power. They don't work on precedent. Or, from what I can see, the judge just depends what mood the judge is in and how he feels that day, whether he gives bail or not. Or, there's no, you can't be sure of anything. And I just think this will be a blow to John George's family, because their son will not be spending Christmas with his loved ones, will he? Because he's deceased, he'll never be spending another Christmas with them again. So not only is Michael Malley out celebrating, he'll be celebrating Christmas however he celebrates it, and the same with Johnny, it sounds like. So, a Costa Blanca judge took the surprise decision to let Johnny Smith leave jail less than 8 months after he was held on a European arrest warrant at an Airbnb in Braga in northern Portugal and extradited to Spain. The 27-year-old from Newton Abbey was still behind bars last night. What day was this? I think he might come out today, I've got a feeling. Don't know what the date on this is. Oh, the 10th of December, and today's the 11th. Yeah. And he will be able to regain his freedom once he hands over the cash, so he's got to pay it first. So, I don't know if he's got access to that money or he can get access to that money. I expect he will try his very best to. So he's been told he must report to court daily to sign on as part of his bail conditions daily. I mean, that's a lot, isn't it? So that'll be caught in Torrevieja probably. He will also be banned from leaving Spain and he will have to hand over his passport. A judge in Torrevieja made the bail decision yesterday following written submissions by his lawyers, ruling the flight risk would be minimised by the conditions attached to his prison release. Well, yeah, he find it hard to leave the country if he's got no passport and he's got reporting every day. I don't think he'll do a flit. Well, who knows? But, there are ways and means, of course, of leaving the country, even if you've handed your passport over. But would he do that? I don't know, because if he does that, then when he finally gets caught again, surely that would be it for Johnny, but for his freedom. Public prosecutors and John George's legal representatives opposed the bail application, saying that he should remain behind bars. I really feel for John's family, because this will be like a slap in the face for them. So this is what I've noticed since I've covered true crime, and not only this case, but any case that I've covered. It don't matter if it's in Ireland, Spain, UK, Canada, America, Australia, all the different places that I cover crime. You always feel like the victims don't, the victims' families don't get taken account of enough. The judge is probably trying to be fair to Johnny, let him out for Christmas. Anyway, they've been offered the chance to appeal to try to ensure his taste of freedom is brief if he pays his 6-figure bail bond to get out of jail. He's understood to have been told the news his bail application was successful earlier today, paving the way for him to spend Christmas with his OnlyFans model wife, Madison, not Madeline, I think I called her Madeline, Madison Smith, even though they will have to stay in Spain. Well, they wouldn't go back to Ireland anyway, I doubt it very much. And don't forget, Madison has been in trouble herself, because she earlier this month, I think, or earlier this year, she's now 20, she was 19 when all this happened. She was arrested and she bailed herself earlier this year after being caught with drugs at a Spanish roadblock, and police discovered nearly 1 kilo of crystal meth and 30 grams of cannabis resin in the car she was driving during an early hours traffic stop on September the 8th. I feel, I've always felt a little bit sorry for Madison because she's so young. Just think this is now she's 20 and she'll have this on her record. But anyway, Smith was remanded and spent 10 days behind bars before handing over 20,000 euros in bail to secure a release. So she had 20,000 euros hanging around. So suspected killer Smith, who is protesting his innocence, and we have to remember he's protesting his innocence, is one of two people being investigated over the murder of John George in December last year. And the 37-year-old's body was found in an orchard in Rocales near Torrevieja on January the 7th. Yeah, so just after New Year, after anguished appeals by his family following his disappearance the previous month. Yeah. They had a very traumatic time last year looking for him, and now this will be like a slap in the face, I think, to John's family. So the other suspect is a Czech national, Michael Malley, who is currently on bail and being investigated as a suspected accomplice. No formal charges have yet been laid against either man, as is normal in Spain, where suspects are only indicted shortly before trial. In April, Spanish Civil Guard officers confirmed John George had been shot dead on December the 14th last year, and announced they had completed their investigation into his murder. Now, we don't know the full details yet. We don't know. Was he shot at the flat in the Orihuela Costa and then taken to Rocales? Was he taken to Rocales and then shot? All we know is he is dead. At the end of the day, he's dead. So the Spanish won't release any details of the investigation. And I think what this court case will come down to is Michael will blame Johnny, and Johnny will blame Michael, and then see what happens on the day. They're not going to say they were in it together, are they? So what's the most evidence against? I mean, Michael Malley has, something in his favour that he didn't run. He handed himself into the police. That's got to work in his favour. I don't know if it was him who told him where the body was, or whether it was the Guardia who found the body, themselves, because of data, who knows? We just don't know. So, but if Michael Malley did tell them where the body was, that will go in his favour as well. The problem Johnny's got really is, at the end of the day, he did a runner afterwards, and that will not look good. When it comes to his court case, but still, he still has to be found guilty. A force spokesman said at the time the Civil Guard has completed its investigation into the disappearance of a young Irish man in December last year, following the arrest in Braga in Portugal in April, and the subsequent extradition of the alleged material author of that man's homicide. The victim's body was found around 2 weeks after his father reported him missing and thought he was in Benidorm visiting friends. But don't forget as well, there was a flight booked for him to go back to Ireland, and it's thought that he did not book that flight. Of course, he never got on it. So, there was definitely some sort of scheme to sort of let the family believe he was still alive for as long as possible. Police went on to say of the suspected killer, although they have never officially named him, as is customary in Spain, he left the country in a hurry with his girlfriend, even abandoning his 2 pet dogs at his home in Orihuela on the Costa Blanca as he sought to evade capture. Now, Madison went on TikTok and said they didn't abandon the dogs. They probably had somebody going in feeding them. I don't know, but who knows? We don't know all the full details, do we? But the civil guard requested the issue of a European arrest warrant for him and the cooperation of other police forces through Interpol, and he was located in Portugal on March the 25th and extradited to Spain on April the 3rd. It is, I don't know if it was actually the George family that found out where he was and let the Guardian know. Yeah, so it's horrible, isn't it? It is a horrible case, horrible for everybody. Everybody's family is affected. But, let me know what you think. That is a slap in the face, isn't it, for the George family to think that he'll be out enjoying Christmas, even if he does have to report to the court every day. He'd be free. And, of course, their loved one, John George, 37 years old, father of 2 boys, son, brother, etc., cousin, friend, he won't be enjoying Christmas, will he? So it will be galling, I think. Don't you think? How would you feel if it was your loved one? And that's what I would say to, the people who allegedly committed this crime. You've got to feel a compassion for this family. Whatever your thing was with John, I don't know what happened, but you've got to feel compassion for any family who, and especially those 2 boys. That's just, Christian emotion to feel, isn't it? And I would just say, even if in this life you might end up getting away with this crime, whoever did it, but you won't get away with it in the next life, that's for sure. You've got to, you've got to think about your soul. People, I don't think they think, they think maybe that there's no retribution, no proper retribution. Maybe they don't believe in an afterlife, and they don't believe in paying for things in another life, or even in this life with karma, etc. I would just say, and it may be true, but I don't believe that. I believe you do pay for everything you do, even little things. We all do little things that wrong, that afterwards we think, oh, I shouldn't really have done that. But I mean, not like this, obviously. You have to think about your immortal soul. So I'm getting a bit deep there, but it's because it's coming up to Christmas as well, I think. You do have to think about your immortal soul, because you're a long time dead, aren't you? Life is just a moment, really. You think life is forever. It isn't. It goes like that, and but then you're a much longer time dead, aren't you? So you've got to really think about what's going to happen afterwards more than what's happening now, really. Anyway, I just thought I'd give you that news. I found it a bit sad. I mean, it's not, I've got nothing against Johnny. I don't know if he did it or he didn't do it or whatever. But just thinking of John George's family and how that will feel when it's bad enough. Probably the only thing that's been keeping them going is justice is coming, and, the person that they think killed John is behind bars. And there's a peace in that, at least, isn't there? And then knowing he's coming out for Christmas, that'd be like a slap in the face when they're facing an awful Christmas and New Year anyway, just because they're not, John's not there, and this is the first Christmas. I say last Christmas was spent looking for him, looking for his body, for God's sake. And this year is the first year knowing that he won't be around at Christmas. And for his boys, knowing their dad won't be around. Sad, isn't it? Anyway, I just thought I'd give you the news because it's a case that we've followed. We'll carry on following it and be intriguing to see, what happens in the end. Somebody killed, the only thing we know, somebody killed John. You don't shoot yourself, you don't stab yourself in the leg, shoot yourself 3 times, once in the face, strip yourself and put yourself in a lemon grove in Rock Alice. Somebody did it. So who was it? It's got to be really one of these two men. Um, it's a shame, isn't it? There's obviously something gone wrong there. And I know John's family would be the first to admit that he got himself involved with things that he shouldn't have been involved with. But I don't think that's a reason to just think, oh, well, he got what he deserved. I don't think that's true. Unless he was like a murderer as well, then you'd have less sympathy probably if he'd done that to somebody else. But yeah. Anyway, it's made me think, and I just think of his family, and if any of his family are watching, I'm so sorry that this is happening to you. Really, I am. Shouldn't happen to any family. So, okay. So, yeah, I'll see you really soon in the next video, and until then, may your God go with you. Thank you.